I just spent multiple months in Peru, and throughout my stay, I've got to experience the ugly side of this otherwise stunningly beautiful South American country. So today I'll share my most disturbing stories about food contamination, scam culture, and violent crime. Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. I kicked off my Peruvian journey this March with a 5-hour flight between Lima and Buenos Aires, after which the first thing that I saw was a shootout that claimed 2 lives. And since the Peruvian police refused to arrest the gunman, it also caused a huge outrage. And I'll return to this story later in the video, when I talk about other crimes that I witnessed in a greater detail. But first we need to start with everyday issues. And the biggest one is the lack of reliable internet access, which is true both for household cable and also for cell phone data. So I often found myself walking home in the dark across sketchy neighborhoods, as I couldn't even call an Uber, and almost every time I wanted to use Google Maps, it gave me routes that didn't even exist. Just a couple more steps and... I guess we're not going to the beach today. This issue made online work incredibly slow and frustrating, as back in Argentina uploading content usually took me just a couple of minutes, but the same workload in Peru took not only hours but literal days, which made me feel like I was working from another planet. The reason behind Peru's poor telecommunication is chaotic infrastructure that was built with very low standards. As a result, most neighborhoods are drowning in an endless sea of unmanaged cables, which makes the streets look very ugly. Poorly maintained streets lead us to my second big topic in this video, which is architecture. Similarly to Brazil, Peru also has favela-like shantytowns, except here they are called barriadas. These formations were built with makeshift materials, and they lack basic amenities like running water, electricity, or sanitation. However, to me personally, 90% of Peru feels like a big unending shantytown, since most houses come without any insulation or painting. And surprisingly, even the most expensive apartments lack some of their walls. In most modern countries, such buildings would probably get bulldozed in a matter of days, since they would be labeled inhabitable. In Peru, however, this style of architecture is definitely dominant, and you can also witness this mess in the heart of their capital city, as Lima's historic center is literally falling apart. My local friends at the gym call their country Peruistan, which is very weird from a civilization famous for its architecture, as back in the days Peruvians created the Nazca lines or built literal sky cities like Machu Picchu. But either way, this joke is a good illustration of my third and biggest problem, the lack of general standards. For example, most Peruvian towns have no garbage collection, so many of the neighborhoods look like big junkyards. In my day-to-day life this could somewhat be avoided, as I always had my apartments on the nicest streets, so my small bubble was genuinely a West Coast paradise. But probably the most dangerous manifestation of Peruvian low standards is their food industry, and for me this was a big shock, because people on the internet usually refer to Lima as the food capital of South America, which in my experience is only half true, and if I would share all my recordings, YouTube would probably delete my channel. So to keep it brief, the biggest staples of the Peruvian cuisine are raw fish, half-cooked baby lamb, cow heart on a stick, and roasted guinea pigs. But ever since Peruvians have the tendency to fall back to their low standards while cooking these meals, food poisoning in this country is very common. Next to the lack of food safety, a big chunk of the Peruvian water supply is also contaminated with mercury, which is a neurotoxin that can damage kidneys and other internal organs, especially in children. So if you're planning a family vacation in the Peruvian mountains, definitely stick to store-bought drinks. And last but not least, we need to talk about crime, as entire Peru is famous both for scams and also for violence. For example, in the capital city of Lima, violent crimes are 10 times higher, rape rates are 20 times higher, and overall gun violence is 40 times higher compared to European capital cities such as Warsaw, Budapest or Prague. And unfortunately, my personal experience says that these numbers are way off, and the real crime rate is much higher. Violations just simply don't get reported, Because in Peru, only 70% of the population has access to cell phones, and according to locals, public safety is getting worse every year. So if you come to Peru, you must be very careful where you go and also how you go, as a significant portion of the violent crime happens on the Peruvian public transport, and a big chunk of scams are committed by taxi drivers. The shootout that I mentioned earlier also took place on public transport, because the local gangs have the tendency to raid buses. Plus, of course, I also got my fair share of scams, as my latest tour guide just disappeared with $300. So if you wanna watch the full story, make sure you click on this card, as I literally got the whole thing on camera. Thank you for sticking around all the way, and I'll see you in the next one.